Hey folks, Fernando, another video for the Modern Survivalist, and this is going to be the English version of a video I just did for my Spanish channel regarding the utility of pistol caliber carbines for home defense in the homestead when you have maybe further, greater distances and such. This is the kind of thing I'm asked sometimes in my Instagram. By the way, it's Furfal308. You'll find the links for my Instagram down there, also the links for my book, Street Survival Skills, Modern Survival Manual, and if you look in the French Amazon website, there's the French version of Street Survival Skills there as well. Manuel de Survie Urbain. Yeah, my French is not very good. But anyway, guys, that's it. So I sometimes do these crossovers from the questions I get asked in my Spanish channel to the English one, because I feel that a lot of the things folks are seeing in places like Argentina and many other parts of Latin America, you guys in the United States will unfortunately end up seeing soon enough, if not already. But this is a topic that has been discussed many times before, the utility of a pistol caliber carbine. Does it make sense and such? Of course it does make sense. I mean, the old West thing of having your revolver, yes, of course, not a double action revolver like my beautiful Man-Run MR73 over there, but maybe like a Colt 45 Colt or like a 4440, and having the same gun in your Winchester, in your lever action in 45 or 4440. Did it make sense? Of course it did. It simplified things, logistics. You only had one type of ammunition, and that worked both for your handgun and your long gun. Of course, it is a compromise. You're using what's mostly a small, a handgun type caliber in a long gun, and you're not making the most of the capabilities of other alternatives in long guns. If you have like a 30-30 in your Winchester, man, that is a serious little round. You're going to be punching pretty hard further away. And in the modern world, the equivalent would be something like this, like your, well, what I have here is this is a Just Right carbine in 9mm using the same magazines as a Glock, and then a bunch of parts from what's your typical AR platform, which is a good, like a post-apocalyptic junkyard type of mutant used in this gun, where you have a bunch of parts that are used in your AR, magazines from your Glock. I like that. I think it's pretty cool to have those things being integrated into the pistol caliber carbine. But going back to this, sure, you're not getting the most of what a rifle usually provides in terms of stopping power. You're making that compromise. Now, how much sense does that compromise make? Well, these days, I guess it makes a good amount of sense, given that you see how people are struggling even to find ammunition. Now, any prepper, any survivalist worth his salt, you should have a lot of ammunition already. And by that, I mean ammunition you haven't used. Just doesn't work if you had like 5,000 rounds of ammunition and you burned through most of that last year, then now you're screwed. Now you're going through a phase in which ammunition is very expensive and not always easy to come across, and it's a moment in which you maybe want to have a solid rainy day stock of it. All right, so does it make sense? Yeah. It's not going to be making, I mean, there's no magic involved here, folks. With your 9mm pistol, you have a certain amount of stopping power and accuracy. If you put that into a long gun, that changes to some extent. One of the things you probably wonder about is those kits like the Ronnie, or what is it, Ronnie, or some other, the plastic kit, like a case in which you put, like a chassis in which you put your Glock, and that converts, the pistol caliber carbine conversion thing. Well, I had one of those, and does it work? Sure it does. Does it convert your pistol into a carbine? No, or maybe somewhat. It converts it into a carbine in the sense that you have a stock, and that gives you another point. Actually, you have your cheek as well. So your cheek, your shoulder, and your support hand, all of these, well, your support hand would be in your gun either way, although you're now changing position if you have a vertical grip as well. So you have more points of contact thanks to that chassis, and you are going to be be able to shoot more accurately a little bit further away at some medium distances. Granted, some fantastic shooter will probably pick a Glock and shoot just as well or even better at that same distance if he's a world-class shooter. Now, for most of us average-ass human beings, it's not as easy, and the chassis that gives you those extra points of contact, you do see the difference. You are going to be shooting more accurately with your pistol within that pistol caliber, within that chassis at those distances. Also, you have the advantage of being able to easily incorporate like a red dot, because those chassis usually have, the Ronnie thing has a rail so as to put a red dot. And yes, the red dot is going to be simplifying things. It's not the same as mounting a red dot on an actual AR or on one of these pistol caliber carbines that have the upper itself incorporates the rail, and it's different when you throw the gun into a plastic chassis which you close it over. It's not the same solid interface, and it's simply not going to be as accurate. Also, you don't have the same barrel length. You still have your Glock 17 barrel length, and one of the advantages of a pistol caliber carbine is that with that extra barrel length you have more velocity, which translates into more energy, more stopping power. Is that significant? Pretty much it's going to be up for you to decide, and it's going to be changing depending on caliber, depending on the firearm, the barrel, and the barrel length. All of those are variables. Give or take, you can expect, like, from going from a 357 4-inch barrel revolver to a carbine like the Winchester 94 that I have here, maybe 150 feet per second more. Is that significant? Well, yeah, it is a little bit more energy. Is it that big of a difference? No. I mean, it's not going to be converting it into a 223, certainly not, or a 308. That's just not going to be happening, but it is in fact going to be punching with a little bit more power at further distances, further away, with a little bit better accuracy. Now, with these, you have that, unlike the pistol conversion chassis of your Ronnie kit. All right, so that is an advantage here. Certainly, it is with your 357 Magnum, and you can go with like a 44 Magnum. Maybe a 44 Magnum is going to be giving you quite a bit more power in a carbine like this. It is going to be a little bit of a bigger handgun, and it's going to be a little bit more of a heavier revolver and a larger revolver and more expensive ammunition to shoot. Yes, certainly so. I like the 357 because mostly I am looking at using it in the revolver, and you can use a 38 Special, which is a nice advantage, unlike your 44 Magnum, which 44 Specials not easily available. Maybe if you're a reloader, this doesn't matter as much, but for most average shooters, the advantage with those two calibers there is to be accounted for. Now, one of the things I was being asked was in regards to using this for home defense, and specifically for using it for defense out in the country, out in the fields. Country, a homestead, a farm, distances are greater, and this changes, and I've been in different places. This changes from one country to the other. What you consider to be a homestead or a farm in Argentina is not the same for someone living in UK or someone living in United States. It is not the same thing. In fact, if you're living like in the middle of a pampa in Argentina, those distances may well be miles. It's not uncommon for you to have like the main gate, and just miles later you actually reach the home or the farmhouse where people actually live. So it wouldn't be uncommon for people to just be in their house in the country, and they either have dogs or an alarm system or dados, which are like very freakishly little birds that, I mean, if you're watching this from the United States, you probably have no idea what a damn dado is. But dados are like birds that have like a claw hanging on their wings, and they are like alarm dogs. They start barking out and making a very high-pitched noise when they see something suspicious. This is very typical all across Argentina, and that's the way in which, if you have a basic understanding about these animals, you know that something is going on. They are alerting you of something suspicious. Anyway, if you're there and you suddenly see something going on, and you see that someone broke through your main gate because that gate has a padlock and there's no other way of accessing it, and the dogs start barking, maybe you have a more modern alarm system and you get notified that someone broke through that gate and is heading your way. You look and you see with your binoculars that you have a pickup truck with 5 guys with guns heading your way. Yeah, that's probably not good news. And if that's the case, I bet you just don't want to wait until the last moment until those guys are kicking down your door. And usually what happens in a place like Argentina is people fire warning shots. I mean, I've been in those situations where they see people either trespassing, stealing crops, or just hunting, illegally within your land, and you just fire a couple warning shots. Usually they leave, they go away. They see, okay, yeah, you caught me, I'm screwing up, I'm heading away. I've seen that many times, and it's fairly common. Now, if it's an attack, it's something different. It may well be the case that they just don't care, and they're going to be thinking, okay, I can still take this guy and steal his stuff. If that's the case, which, fingers crossed doesn't happen, and it's really not all that common. When you fire a couple of warning shots, in general, people leave. But if they don't, then you have to, go to the next step. How is it that you defend yourself from these criminals that are now attacking you, and they're at a further distance away? Guys, usually when it's self-defense, we all know those distances are what, 5, 6, 7 yards, mostly, most cases, that is it. But in some of these specific scenarios, and in some of these a type of terrain environment, when you have a homestead and you have long, flat terrain and huge distances, it may well be the case that it may be 100, 200 yards. Who knows how long it could be? Could be quite a bit. Maybe they retreat further away and they start taking their chance with a few shots. If they have someone with a rifle and a scope, you just don't know. I mean, crazier things have happened. But if you are there, you may want to have a long gun. And for example, in Argentina, you're basically not allowed to have a semi-automatic rifle unless you go through a lot of paperwork that most people simply do not go through. It's a very difficult process. Forget about it. Most people will not have access to that. Until recently, now some semi-automatic 9mm are going through that pistol route. They are actually ending up in gun stores, and people are considering buying them for defense in their farms. And it's a viable option. I think that with something like this, I think that it's the ones that are making it through are like the Ruger PC 9mm. I think there's someone from a semi-automatic little carbine from SIG, also using Glock magazines, also making its way. And yeah, would those be good alternatives? I think they would be. I think they're going to be giving you more accuracy at greater distances, at that medium distance. Now, is that an AR? Is that an AK-47, let alone an FAL? No, it's not. You're going to be reaching and being more accurate, but you're still firing a pistol caliber carbine. With a 357 Magnum, 44 Magnum, it's going to be having a bit more of a punch. Now, when it comes to 9mm carbines like these, you're still limited basically to a 9mm, which is a very decent round. Don't get me wrong, especially if you have quality ammunition, if you have nice light plus P rounds that are going to be shooting a little bit of a flatter trajectory and reaching with good energy. That may be all you need so as to defend yourself, or at least discourage the attackers from continuing with their assault. But it is not going to be your AR, your AK. If you have a rifle with a proper scope, that is going to be a completely different platform, and it's going to be allowing you to reach those distances with a lot more accuracy. I mean, I wouldn't shy away from a bolt action 308 or 30-06 with a decent scope. That is definitely the kind of gun you want if someone starts shooting from an entrenched position at 200 yards away, right? That's going to be giving you real accuracy at those ranges rather than just trying to guess what you're shooting at or not, if you're hitting or not. So that's why, guys, we often talk about a battery of guns rather than just one gun. Most people, most cases, just having like, you have your Glock, you have your revolver. For most cases of people needing to defend themselves in most home invasion scenarios, usually that's it, or having a shotgun. Now, when you are further away and you have these type of terrains, some folks may live in a little cabin in the middle of nowhere, but in a wooded mountain type of area where ranges and distances are a lot closer, may not be all that different from the distances of engagement from someone living in a suburban or even an urban environment, if you have that type of terrain around you. Now, if you're living in Patagonia, if you're living in Neuquén, in the middle of nowhere, you're not talking about feet, you're talking about kilometers, you're not talking about kilometers or miles even of your land. So it's huge extensions of lands, distances are massive, and it's pretty much desert. I mean, most of Patagonia in Argentina is mostly desert, flat land. It goes on forever. So it may well be the case that you really do need a gun that is capable of shooting accurately at very long distances. With something like a solid AR platform, may well be a ticket for you. Right? It's going to be 223, or you may have something else. If you have an AR-10 and 308, that's going to be giving you 308 caliber to fire. I think that's going to be even better. If you have an FN SCAR or some other platform in 308, I think it's fantastic. But in your battery, if you have a couple handguns, you have a shotgun, you have a little carbine, and you have a bolt action rifle with a decent scope, that may well be the gun you end up reaching for if you have the time for it. It's not always the case. In many instances that I know of home invasions, even out in the country, it still catches people by surprise at very close distances, because they either were trusting the person that was approaching them, and it's still a scenario in which most likely having this concealed and being fast and accurate with your handgun, I still think that's a lot more likely to be of use rather than shooting it out with bandidos at 300 yards away. But in spite of that, I'm not saying it cannot happen. It may well be the case. And given how things are these days, folks, you just never know. And you certainly don't know what's going to be happening a few months from now when things keep on going the way we all see them going. Guys, it's going to be all for now. Remember that if you're in the slightest interest in this type of preparedness that I've been doing for years, consider buying my book, Street Survival Skills, the Modern Survival Manual. Links are going to be down there below. See you in our next video, folks. Have a happy day in spite of everything. Take care.